Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. A very good morning to everyone. So let me start with a confession today. There was a time in my life when I trusted a stranger more than myself. Not a teacher, not a mentor, not even my own abilities, but a stranger. I had failed repeatedly during my graduation journey. 4 attempts, 4. And after failing again and again, something happened that I never thought I would admit publicly. I went to a palmist. Yes, a palmist. And I asked, will I ever graduate? Now think about that for a second, that a young woman so uncertain about her future that she needed reassurance from a stranger, and that also just by looking her hand. Not her degrees, not her marks, not her profile, her hand. See, but eventually I did graduate. Sadly, the graduation did not end the confusion. Now I had another pressure to figure out who I was supposed to become. That happens with everyone. So I tried many things. I did literature, I tried competitive exams like CSS, and chose some other paths too. And for years I thought I was searching for success. But when I look back now, I believe I was searching for the perfect version of my life. A perfect identity, a perfect career, and a perfect decision. And perfectionism does one thing dangerous. It convinces you that one wrong choice can ruin your entire future. And when you start believing that one mistake can define your future, you stop building it. Because now you're fearful. You think, what if I fail? And that was me. Trying again, restarting again, and questioning myself again. Until after 7 years, I finally chose one path that I had spent years rejecting: an MBA. And ironically, I used to think that doing MBA was too ordinary, too common, and too predictable. Why would I do that? And that was the real trap I learned later. It took me 7 years to unlearn that success must always look extraordinary. It took me 7 years to unlearn that perfectionism can delay perfectly good opportunities simply because they don't look impressive enough. And that's where we fell into the trap. And sometimes the hardest part of growth is not in learning new things, but it is actually to let go of the beliefs we have spent years believing. And that was my first lesson in unlearning. Years later, fast forward my life, I became something in life and starting leading teams. But I would share with you that here I noticed something so surprising that I never thought I would experience. I saw the same pattern everywhere. Working for the global organizations, local organizations, I saw the pattern was same. I saw extremely intelligent people delaying decisions, avoiding risks, and waiting too long to be ready because they were waiting for the perfect moment. But the problem is that perfect moment never arrives. That is why it's really important at times that you keep unlearning. Until the time that you get to know that, okay, unlearning that asking for help is weakness. Unlearning that ambition is burnout. Unlearning that emotions can make you less professional. And that's what my learning on perfectionism was. Years later, I tried to notice the similar patterns in the organization, in the leaders, in the organization. So I noticed that actually we all want to grow, we all want to excel. Likewise, that girl in front of palmist wanted to excel. But then what's the problem? The problem is at times what we do that we confuse excellence with perfection. What you want, that is excellence, but you fell into the trap of perfectionism because it takes too much time to give you that perfect solution. And to me, now, perfectionism is a procrastination wearing fancy suit. Now I work for an organization that is known for innovation, and years later, I realized that excellence is something that actually helps to grow. Why? Because when you are actually on the ground, when you're working with teams, when you are actually living the ideas every day, this requires adaptability. And then you can only adapt when you listen without ego, when you are ready to improve without certainty. And I realized that the girl sitting in front of the PAMIS was actually thinking in her mind that she is chasing excellence, but she fell into the trap of uncertainty. So when you look for the certainty, you know what happens? There is the place where perfectionism kicks in and it starts playing its game. You want guarantees. You want to figure out your entire life without you have even taken your first step. Perfectionism asks you, provide the evidence of success before you have taken your first step. But I learned years later that it was not the perfection, it was not the certainty that I was wanting. Back then, that girl was looking for certainty. She was not in search of excellence, she was in pursuit of certainty. And that's where the trap was there. And that is why many of us slow down our progress, because we want for that perfect solution, perfect moment to reach, but that never arrives. And years later, what I figured out, okay, so this is what we all fell into the trap. So where we can improve. When I realized that excellence and perfection are not the same, this decision changed my life. Now I work in one of the fastest moving industry imaginable, FMCG. We work on the grounds, we live the ideas, we launch every day, and we work so close on the ground because we want to know the customer preferences. And you know, the organization that is known for innovation can only grow when you have space for experiment. A process where you actually reward progress instead of demanding perfection. That is why we value people who own their mistakes. We collaborate so openly because when I look back, I see that none of that requires perfection. Innovation especially doesn't require perfection. It requires a continuous progress. And continuous progress happens where you have space for your teams. When you wait for the perfect moment, you say like, let's avoid mistakes. Let's wait until the perfect moment comes. Until the time your teams get exhausted. Not because they lack talent, but because they are no more feeling safe being human, safe to experiment, safe to make mistakes, safe to unlearn and learn again. But the irony is that none of us were meant to be perfect in the first place. So when I learned excellence, so I will tell that how I could see that excellence, what kind of behavior tells excellence. So before that, I thought that excellence meant that you would have always a right path. You would never make mistakes. But eventually I learned that excellence is not absence of mistakes. It's not about never choosing wrong path. It's actually about a commitment to grow through them. And this distinction actually changed my entire journey. So is that girl's journey. And this was the final thing she unlearned, that perfectionism was holding her. The certainty was holding her. And when I look back now, I think that I should have learned that time that excellence meant not waking up every morning full of confidence. It's waking up every morning uncertain, still choose to move forward. Still applying anyway, trying anyway, beginning anyway, even your life doesn't look perfect yet. So if I look back now and I meet that moment again, and that girl sitting in front of PAMIS, if she asks me, will she become something in life? I would tell her, stop chasing success. Stop chasing certainty. Get up, take your first step, and keep becoming. Because becoming requires unlearning, and unlearning the fear at the first place. And I think, and I believe, that perfectionism holds you when it asks you, what if I fail? But excellence asks you, what you can become if you never stop growing. And to me, that's a real difference between a perfect life and a meaningful one, that one is performed, the other is lived. Thank you.